Hey, welcome to the channel. Thanks for checking out this video. Today we're coming back to Marshall's Creek Park, one of my favorite locations here locally in the Poconos. We were here yesterday morning painting the falls, and we had a great time. And the little mini mint tin plein air painting that we created came out pretty good. Happy with the results. We're coming back for our second day in a row, and we've been here multiple times, sometimes just exploring, sometimes painting. And that speaks to how returning to a familiar scene can help us get into a virtuous cycle. If an object is pleasant, repetition will increase its charm, said David Hockney. And I believe that to be true. For some reason, I've noticed over the years when I'm painting a familiar scene, one that I've taken the time to notice over longer periods of time and return to frequently, I have an easier, more enjoyable time painting it, and the results, more often than not, are a little bit better than they otherwise would be. It must have something to do with that level of familiarity and also our ability to process and synthesize and translate the nearly infinite amount of information that's before us in nature. So in this session, we're going to be upscaling to that 5-inch by 7-inch format, and we're still going to use all the same materials. We're just going to use a slightly larger handheld easel. Instead of using a mini mint tin, we're going to use an old upcycled pencil case or pencil box. And you'll see the whole process as mentioned. Once we make our way down this pathway, which I intend to paint at some point, the scenery here along the pathway is just beautiful. This notion that art does not reproduce what we see, it makes us see, said Paul Klee, and others have expressed similar sentiments in different ways, but I happen to like the way Paul said it. I think the reason why I enjoy how he phrased that, it's because it suggests that both the artists see differently as a result of the process of creation, and the viewer of the art also sees the world differently as a result of the labor of the artist. And I think that, in a sense, can help the artist pull everybody into a little bit of a better place within this world. I don't mean in some grandiose idea. I mean by virtue of taking the time to notice the beauty around us, we will often draw the attention of others to do the same thing. In a sense, we're leading the effort to focus our attention on things that matter, that are also often overlooked. So here are the results of yesterday's painting efforts. I like this little painting and hope to come back and do it again, maybe blow it up to a larger format. So what you see here, I'm setting up for my painting session. I'm going to be standing during this session, and I'm going to be using a handheld easel, which is essentially an upcycled old pencil tin. I have my same paint kit though that I'm going to be using, so it's all the same brushes, all the same acrylic paints. I am going to use a little bit of a broader palette, so instead of 3, 4, or 5 colors, I may have 6 or 7 on my palette. And that's mainly because there's a large range of values and colors within the landscape, within the scene that we're going to be painting. And heck, I have more space on my palette because of the larger surface area that I have with this pencil tin than I would, let's say, if I were painting with a mint tin. The rest of the process is exactly the same, other than the size and the use of a little bit more paint over the larger format that I'm using with this 5 by 7-inch canvas panel. So I'm struggling a little bit here, folding up my shop towel so it fits in there snug. In case a gust of wind blows up, I don't want it easily to be blown out of the base of that pencil tin. And I'm going to go ahead and spray down that shop towel, which is nothing more than a super heavy duty paper towel. And we're moisturizing it just to help those acrylic paints stay moist throughout the entire painting process. And I'll come back and I'll spritz the palette again a little bit after we get started. So this scene is real familiar. I must have seen this view without noticing it, perhaps, maybe 20, 25 times. I've been on this hike by myself, with family members. I've had painting sessions here over the years. And for some reason, on the way back from my painting session at the falls yesterday morning, I noticed this view. And I thought to myself, I just have to paint that. And I may want to come back and paint that throughout multiple seasons, especially during or after a snowfall. I could just imagine this view being particularly striking after a nice snowfall in winter, with the water being partially frozen and the landscape being simplified, the plains of the landscape being simplified by freshly fallen snow, and the reflection of light probably providing a nice jewel-like quality. And I'm hoping that I'll have the opportunity to come back after next winter's first snowfall and actually paint here. So you can see my palette, pretty standard palette, Prussian blue, ultramarine blue. I have a little black on there all the way to the left. A little bit burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and the equivalent of cadmium red and titanium white there in the center. So that's the palette that I'm likely going to go with. Let's see, I'll put a little magenta on here too. Scratch that. I'll put a little cadmium yellow on here too. And that's because I'm noticing how the light is bouncing off of some of the mosses. And I think that lighter yellow will help me achieve some effects that indicate that nicely. So I'm going to start with the biggest brush I can possibly manage in this format. Nice little flat brush. And here's how you'll view the process here. I'll speed it up in just a bit. There's nothing like drawing a thing to make you really see it, said Margaret Atwood. And I think that's definitely the case. It has something to do with the process of translating the three-dimensional world into the two-dimensional world with the intention of making it look three-dimensional. The process of executing that magic trick makes us see at a different level than we otherwise would see. And then we could even level up further by trying to paint something. And that was the sentiment passed along by Janet Fish when she said, "I feel as though I haven't seen an object until I actually start painting it." That resonates with me because when we try to paint a scene, the process of doing so helps us observe a little bit more deeply what's going on in nature, and also helps us appreciate the complexity of nature and the beauty found therein. So while painting might not be for everybody, if you're somebody that just feels moved when viewing nature, whether it's a beautiful scene or something maybe a little bit more humble, just the act of observing it certainly is something that I appreciate. But when I try to paint a scene, there's a different level of appreciation for the natural world that I feel conjured up when I work through that process. And that brings us back to this idea of how art can help us navigate into a virtuous cycle, sometimes through repetition. Now, my daily painting practice certainly helps bring me quite a bit of joy and peace and other positive emotions that come along with it too. And I find that oftentimes when I'm painting a scene that I'm familiar with, or one that I've painted before, as mentioned, the process goes a lot more smoothly. The outcome is often quite a bit better, but I also find that I sense a greater understanding of my environment, more so perhaps than if I didn't take the time to paint or draw a scene over and over again. And that, in and of itself, brings about a certain kind of feeling of peace and harmony. And maybe it's just by virtue of taking the time to observe something that's familiar that allows us to take comfort in our surroundings. I don't understand it, but that's what I sense this feeling of peace that you get from painting familiar scenes is all about. Now, when it comes down to the quality of the art we produce, there's a lot of evidence that's been mined through history that suggests history's great artists definitely applied this principle of returning to the familiar and painting familiar scenes over and over again, whether it's Monet and his haystacks or other artists who followed a similar process. You could definitely see why a painter would be drawn to this sort of process. And you don't need to take my word for it. How about Camille Pissarro, where he said, "It's only by drawing often that you discover true character." And I think that has to do a lot with our limitations and our mind's ability to absorb the infinite detail in nature. In that sense, I'm of the belief you don't really see a place until you've painted it twice. The first painting is an observation. The second is understanding. Repetition isn't redundancy, it's revelation. Familiar places don't get boring, they get deeper. And I think therein lies one of the great secrets of landscape painting. First visit, you paint what you think you see. Second visit, you start noticing what you missed. Third visits, you begin seeing relationships, light, pattern, rhythms. Eventually, you no longer paint the place, you're painting your understanding of it. The artist does not see things as they are, but as he is, was once said. And I believe that to be true. And when we visit a place over and over again, it changes us. Art is not what you see, but what you make others see, said Edgar Degas. And in that sense, I hope that this painting and others I make bring peace and a little bit of happiness to your world. Thanks for checking out this video. Please like and subscribe if you found it enjoyable. Stay well. Hope to see you again next time.